All right, today we're diving into a really powerful idea, one that asks us to choose between two very different futures, one that's built just for ourselves and one that's built for our grandchildren. So here's the big question that really sits at the heart of all this. Are we building for short-term survival, or are we actually laying the groundwork for generations we might not even get to meet? It's a huge question, right? And the framework we're exploring today offers a pretty stark diagnosis of where we might be now, and then lays out this incredible, ambitious vision for where we could go. Okay, so first things first, let's really get a handle on the problem. We're going to start by breaking down the characteristics and the consequences of what the author calls a one-generation society. So, what is this one-generational mindset? Well, at its absolute core, it's this belief that the economic pie is fixed. It's a worldview totally driven by scarcity, this idea that there's just not enough to go around. And when you believe that, it forces everyone to focus on their own individual survival, right now, above everything else. And you can see the core conflict laid out perfectly here. On one side, you've got this fear-based approach, all about scarcity and looking out for number one. But on the other side, it's a completely different story. It's a hope-based vision, one that assumes abundance and thinks about generational stewardship. And according to the source, this one little shift in outlook, well, it changes absolutely everything. So when you have that scarcity mindset, it naturally leads to a certain set of values, right? You start to see things like entitlement, that me, myself, and I attitude. You see materialism, this rush to abuse power just to get rich quick. And principles, they get replaced by a focus on power. It all creates this culture of disposability, where nobody's thinking about the long-term consequences. It's all about the immediate win. And this quote right here, it just sums up the whole moral landscape perfectly. He who controls the gold makes the rules. Think about that. In this kind of world, there aren't really any absolute truths. Instead, you get what the author calls a religion of compromise, where it's not about a moral compass, it's just about power. Power dictates the rules of the game, period. Okay, so that's the mindset. But what happens in the real world when a whole society starts operating like this? Well, as we're about to see, the consequences are huge and they pop up in pretty much every part of society. Take politics, for example. All that short-term thinking, it shows up as corruption and just flat-out neglect of the stuff that really matters, like infrastructure. The author points to the example of South Africa, arguing that a loss of key institutional skills led directly to the collapse of roads, water, and electricity systems. I mean, we're talking about the absolute foundations of a functioning society just crumbling. And it doesn't stop there. The crisis spreads to education and the economy. The education system is described as being totally out of date, like a factory cranking out workers for an economy that doesn't exist anymore, which of course can lead to massive unemployment. And then you look at the economy itself, and you see banking and insurance industries that are basically built on debt and fear, fueling a culture of consumerism. The whole buy things you don't need with money you don't have cycle.
And this quote, wow, it just captures that whole disposable attitude perfectly. Who cares if I waste resources? It is the problem of those who come after me. I mean, that is the ultimate expression of a one-generation mindset, isn't it? A total disregard for the future, just leaving a mess for the next generation to clean up.
But what if there was another way? Is this really the only path we can take? The author really challenges us here to just pause for a second and imagine a totally different future, one built on a completely different set of ideas. And that's where we pivot. This brings us to the solution part of this whole idea, the vision for what's called a three-generation society. And this isn't just complaining about the problem, it's a real, proposed blueprint for how to build for long-term prosperity. So what is a three-generation society? Well, it's a total mind shift. Instead of that laser focus on individual survival, the new core principle is stewardship. The whole idea is that each generation sees its primary job, its main purpose, as building a better, more abundant world for their grandchildren. Okay, to make this feel real and not just like some abstract idea, the author actually maps out what the life cycle of a child could look like. It starts with discovering their unique skills and getting hands-on experience, maybe through family networks. But then comes the really radical part. At age 21, a young person gets a massive head start. We're talking a fully paid-for property and access to interest-free loans to start a business. The whole goal is to empower them to be entrepreneurs, not to saddle them with debt. And then the cycle completes, because they eventually become the mentors for the next generation. So you see, in this vision, it all starts with the family. Empowering the family unit is the crucial first step to rebuilding everything else.
The thinking is that if you have strong, forward-thinking families, they're naturally going to build vibrant communities. And once you have those communities, well, they're going to demand a totally different kind of government.
Just imagine for a second a community where all the different parts are actually working together. You can see it here. You've got businesses, local government, community orgs, families, and they're not fighting each other for resources. They're seamlessly integrated. The theory is that if you pool resources and get rid of all the overlap, productivity just skyrockets because everybody is pulling in the same direction toward the same long-term goal.
And of course, this kind of long-term thinking would totally reshape government. Instead of politicians making empty promises, you choose leaders based on a proven track record of stewardship. Government itself would be trimmed way down to just the essential services. Laws would get rewritten to actually empower entrepreneurs instead of tying them up in red tape. And the whole focus would shift away from big party politics and move toward direct, local accountability.
But here's the thing. At the end of the day, none of this is possible without a massive, fundamental shift in our mindset. It's really simple. You can't build a 3-generation society with a 1-generation mentality. It just won't work. It requires a completely new story, a whole new narrative about who we are and where we're going.
And the media plays a huge role in shaping that narrative. Just look at the contrast here. You have the 1-gen model, where media runs on fear and pushes scarcity. Then you have the 3-gen model, where it runs on hope and assumes abundance. The big idea is to shift away from just selling bad news to keep people scared and controlled, and instead start celebrating what the author calls struggle to significant stories, the kinds of stories that actually unlock our potential.
And this final quote really brings it all home. It's a powerful call to action. The message is crystal clear. It's easy to get sucked into all the negativity, but the challenge is to resist that. The challenge is to actively become the catalyst and start creating and spreading a new, more compelling story for the future.
And really, that's where this whole idea leaves us. It challenges every single one of us to think way beyond our own lifetimes. It's a powerful framework, for sure, but it all boils down to this one last question that's aimed at all of us. What narrative will you create for the generations to come?